If you're a producer who keeps getting stuck in the loop trap, here are 5 steps you need to follow to break out and finally finish full songs. All 5 of these steps need to be completed in the right order, so make sure you watch this full video to really understand. And a great companion along with this video is our free loop trap cheat sheet, which is going to give you some extra creative strategies you can use to expand out your arrangements. Grab that below and let's hop in. Okay, so the first step of this process is fairly self-explanatory, but very important, which is to actually flesh out your loop to its point of maximal density. And I like to call this, and other producers also like to call this, a super loop. Basically, every element you could possibly use at once in your track. This is the highest energy point of your drop normally, maybe different for different genres. And here's an example of what this sounds like with a nice little funky sort of house track. So that's pretty much as busy as I'd want the track to sound, right? It's almost slightly uncomfortably busy if we were to listen to that forever, which is why it's the maximal density point, right? So what I find helpful to do here is once you've got all those elements in, and this involves, extra drum layers. Like I've got multiple different top loops going on here that I may pull in and out throughout the arrangement. I've got the busiest point of the bass line. I've got all these different music sample layers and this string synth. All this stuff to create the fullest energy possible. What I find helpful though is to duplicate your loop at this point. Now, I'm making house music in this case, so it's about an 8-bar loop, which is pretty standard for house music. Most genres, you'll be left with some sort of 8-bar loop. Maybe in some faster genres like drum and bass, you might find yourself doing a 16-bar loop as well. But either way, whatever your loop length is currently, just duplicate it and make a second version. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to treat this as my super loop. So this is the highest density point of my track. Now, notice something really important here. I just duplicated the loop, which is the first step here, right? Is to get out of the loop phrase. It's just to duplicate it. And with the second version, we're going to create what we call quote unquote normal section, right? Now, this is a more stripped back standard level of energy that we're going to rely on for the majority of our arrangement. So it's not going to contain as many layers and stuff like that. So if we listen to this part of the track, this loop, we can sort of go back to where we were before we added in all those extra elements. Right now, you obviously haven't seen that process on my end of me making this loop, but I'm going to sort of give you an idea as to where I was with the basic vibe of the track. So for example, this string here, I'm going to deactivate that clip by pressing 0 because that's adding a lot of tension in here. Okay, so this little guitar stab here, this one, that I want to come in later, so I'm actually going to mute that as well. I think these sample alts as well. I don't want them to be as present for now. We'll just mute the whole track. We may bring in some of the hits, but not all of them. So basically, I just want it to be this and this chord stab as my 2 hits. Super stripped back and simple, right? Really liking that. I have a ride cymbal in here. I want to get rid of that, as well as this little groovy snare. I'm going to get rid of that as well. Don't want that in there quite yet. I just want like a basic house level of energy, right? Now, I'm not sure how stripped I'm going to go at this point. I'm just going to try turning off some of the other layers and see how I go. And this just gives you an idea. So we've turned off the bongos here. We've turned off the shakers, so I can bring those 2 channels on by deactivating the other clips. And this is now our normal loop, right? So we've got this and our super loop. right? So we've got like sort of the normal energy and the super loop energy. Now we can sort of fill in the gaps between these two loops. The question is though, this is not necessarily an arrangement still. We've just got two loops still. So what do we do from here? Well, now that we've got our super loop and our normal loop, the next step is to create a new MIDI track. We're going to call this structure. If I can spell words right. And we're going to create a new audio track and we're going to bring in a reference, REF for short. Now, shout out to Eugene, one of my producer Launchpad students, who suggested this awesome groovy house track called Blueberries by Sam Jacobs and Tagman. I'm going to bring this in as my reference because I think it's similar in style to our track, similar genre, and so I think we're going to work with this. I'll play it in a second for you. First thing we're going to do, though, is I know there's a 1 BPM difference between my track, which is at 127, and this one, which is at 128. So I'm going to bring the start marker right to that first kick drum here, turn on warping on complex mode. I know it's at 128, so that should align with our grid here. I'm just going to go to a random point in the track. We can see there that the kick drums are aligning with our grid now. Perfect. So we know it's warped in time. I'm just going to pitch it up a couple semitones just for the sake of copyright. I'm going to turn off our looping in Ableton here. And now let's just listen to parts of the arrangement really quick. I'm going to make sure this goes out our external out just in case it gets affected by anything on our master. And I'm going to bring our sidechain down here. What we're going to do is we're going to use our MIDI clips as dummy MIDI clips in this structure track to map out the arrangement. And then we're going to basically use this to place our loop. So for example here, let's listen to the reference. So these first two bars here. Oh, didn't mean to export. Insert a MIDI clip. This is an intro. And I'm going to call this intro with clap because there's a bit of a development in there, which is pretty cool. And then I'm going to call this like full drums, right? Now, the thing with this is that in house music, the drop, quote unquote, energy is completed when the drums and bass come in. So this is kind of like a drop without it having a build up, right? So we're going to start to color these things differently. I'm going to use an orange for sort of the more drop or high energy sections. I'm going to use like a gray on these clips to denote like intros. That seems to be a continuation of this section. And you can just see by doing this, we're sort of mapping out what's going on at each 8-bar increment, right? Again, 8 bars is going to be standard for most genres rather. But yeah, whatever you need to do, 16 bars is fine, again, for other genres. So a little chord stab comes in there. Okay, so the kick and bass coming out there, plus a string coming in. So I'm going to call this almost like a little build. So I'm going to color it blue. Yep, so we get the full drums plus bass plus stab here. The string cuts out. And this one I'm going to say actually bass high pass. So the kick comes out there, but the bass is still there, just high passed. This one here, kick and bass out completely. This one is bass high pass again. We're really listening and analyzing our arrangement here, right, which is cool. And then here we have let's call it drop plus, I think it's a trumpet with a mute on it. Duplicate that. Let's just drop. This one comes back to only the horn stabs, not the full like sort of sampler stab we've got before, so it's a bit more stripped back. So we've got a sort of a high pass kick and bass section here. This one here, the kick comes out, the vocal comes in. String comes in the background there. Stabs start to come in here. There's like a vocal and kick hit in this section here. Drop and trumpet again. Continues. Like a low pass drum section. This is just the drums, bass, and horn stab again. Color that. Drums and bass. And then we've got the drums only. So these two are kind of like an outro, I guess. Okay, that is pretty much the structure there. So now we have a full arrangement. We could actually, in theory, completely delete this reference now. We don't even need it. I'm going to delete our markers over here because that was just helpful for the first step. And now we can start that we've got our full arrangement done here. Again, it's helpful to have gray for intro and outro, orange for the high energy sections, and blue for the breakdowns and builds. So now we know like the general energy flow. Really awesome. We can literally start to copy over these sections. Now, I know our default sort of normal loop, we called it, would be suitable for sort of the full drums, bass, and stab sections, right? So let's pop that over there. I'm going to make sure I also copy over our side chain. For that, we definitely need our trigger. And so now we're placing these sections that we'd already created in our arrangement. I'm going to turn off the side chain. Sorry, the solo. Right, now we can go place our super loop somewhere a little different, maybe somewhere a little higher energy. So, for example, I would maybe place it towards the end of the track. Like, I might place the super loop sort of, maybe I'd place it where this drop trumpet section comes in. Yeah. Let's copy over our side chain there too. So now we're placing these elements where they actually belong in the arrangement, which is cool. I could literally now just go and delete all this because I don't need it. I've got everything that I need, but now it's located in the arrangement, and I can sort of duplicate material across from there. Now that we've got these in the right place, as the next part of step 3, we can start to basically duplicate out the main elements across these different sections. This is where the colors are really helpful because you can actually see what's going on. So for example, I'm going to pretty much copy the drums over here, copy the bass over here, because these two sections are pretty much the same. I think I'm actually just going to copy everything over. The reason I like to do it by instrument is because if you just duplicate the whole loop, you can very easily end up with a repetitive arrangement. So I always ask the question, am I duplicating just the drums here, just the bass line, just the other elements? For example here, I might duplicate the full loop into the next section, but I know I'm going to actually delete the kick, and then I can delete the bass. So I can be more intentional about subtracting those elements, which is really cool. And now the section will sound like this. Right? It's got a bit of energy, tension being made there because the kick and bass is out. And then in the next section, I would probably duplicate this over again. Might duplicate these here. And then I'd bring the bass in, right? But of course, we know there's a high pass filter going on here. So I'm going to actually bring in an auto filter. And this is where you may start to add bits of variation in too. So we can literally just automate the on-off of this auto filter just for this section. Right? We're really starting to get somewhere with our arrangement now. Now, I'm going to continue to flesh out the basics of this arrangement, and you can sort of see where I end up with. For example, in this drop trumpet section, we're just going to copy all this stuff over here. And the cool thing is using deactivated clips, you can simply just reactivate extra things for extra sections. So for example, I might want to bring in my sample guitar in this section, as well as maybe an extra hat loop. Now maybe I want to bring this hat shaker thing up in the bass high pass section as well, so I can do that. Again, we have to bring our sidechain over because currently we don't have that. Right, very, very simple. I could bring this and copy it over. Maybe I'm going to get rid of this one here and strip it back down, which is pretty cool. I'm going to go back here. And here I'm actually going to only have the chord stab. So I'm going to turn off our main sample here. We're going to have that muted as well, so it's more stripped back. Now I can have my own creative liberties. For example, maybe I want to bring in this snare in this section of the drop. Again, copy over the sidechain. Really, really cool. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to copy over, actually we'll do it including the sidechain in a sec. We're going to copy this section here. We are actually going to keep the kick in this time. We're going to use a high pass filter again on the kick. Yep, so again, we can just activate that by turning on automation mode. We're going to turn this on just for that section. Now, when it comes to a section, we've got a potential instrument we don't actually have in our loop yet, which you will come across in your arrangement. You'll actually want to simply just create a new audio or MIDI clip, depending on what it is. For example, maybe I want to add a vocal in. I'm going to color it like a green, just so I know that it's slightly different. And I can basically just note here to use that and fill that in later, while still filling out the other elements that I have here. So for example, here, I'm going to copy over the... Copy over this for just the kicks and drums and bass. Get rid of the bass line. Actually, sorry, I meant to say get rid of the kick. Now here, I'm going to bring in the string sample. I'm going to copy over these as well for now. Still having the sidechain going. Going to bring out that shaker. And so on and so forth. I know in the next section I am going to also have the drums still, but I'm going to fade them. Here I know we're just going to continue the stabs across so I can get that going. Continue the string. I think the string will be out by this point though. Maybe actually I want to mute the stabs in this section a bit more. And maybe I'll get rid of these chord stabs down here. Right, here I can just copy the literal exact same section over as we had for the other drop, quote unquote trumpet. Our track doesn't have a trumpet, but we have a similar element that functions as a trumpet, right? We're going to activate the rides there as well. I might even activate the bongos here just to, again, I want this section to have a bit more energy. Might tease the bongos here a little bit as well. Just as we sort of start to get a bit more energy there. Especially in that drums and bass section sounds really, really good. Here we're going to take this. This is the super loop section here, remember. We're going to duplicate that across. Here we're going to duplicate the sidechain across. And we're going to start to strip it back a little bit. So I think, for example, here we might start to take the bongos out. I might start to take the ride out a little bit here. Take the string out. Just have something like this. Going to activate that high pass on here. I'm going to add the low pass in the next section of this tutorial. So for the drums here, we do have a low pass. We are going to add that later. We're going to go to a more stripped section of the drums for the outro-y type drum. So let's just copy some of the stuff from over here. Just pretty much straightforward. I'm going to start to take out these stabs here. Remove that main sample there. Maybe I'll have the shaker here, keeping on going. Or maybe even I'll have the shaker come out there. Duplicate that across there. Maybe I'm even going to go like even more stripped back if possible. Yeah, that top loop can come out. And then we'll just get rid of the bass there. Great, that sounds really, really good. I'm very happy with that. We're going to copy something similar to this section in our intro. So we're going to copy the stripped back drums here. Double check against our reference. We're not going to have the bass here. I am going to just duplicate this all here again for the intro. I think the high pass on the low pass on the drums will come up in this intro here. I'm going to copy over a main. Sort of hit from here just to space it out a bit, have some melodic stuff going on. Maybe here I'm just going to bring in those tops. Then here I'm going to have all of the drums come in and do the same thing with the sidechain. I'm not going to have these chord stabs in yet. And then we'll literally just copy that whole section over again. Except this time we may have a little bit more of the whole main sample. We're going to duplicate that again, except this time we're going to bring in these little stabs here. We're going to activate the kick and bass high pass here, just for this section, and we're going to activate the string. This is so easy to get the arrangement done, right? You're really starting to see it come together. And guys, that's the arrangement done there. There's a few gaps we need to fill, some other things that we don't have space for yet. And that is step 4, which is to simply add in new elements. So for example, we covered here, there's like a vocal that we don't have in our track yet. So let's just quickly open like a quick splice session, look for like a soul vocal that kind of might work at our tempo. And let's get something in. You think you can feel something around the 120 to 130 mark would be good. Love, I love the way you get. Bit too poppy for me. You got everything that you. I don't know if it's me that you need. You miss me here now, I won't pick up your call. That actually could be really, really cool. Might have to do a bit of pitching around to get it sounding good in our key. It's got sort of a nice wispy vibe to it, but we'll see how we go. I don't know if it's me that you need. You miss me here now, I won't pick up your call. It's been falling, I've been stalling for weeks. I'm gonna copy some sidechain onto this just to get a bit of the vibe there. I don't know if it's me that you need. You miss me here now, I won't pick up your call. And I'm just going to add a bit of a high pass here. So again, we're just filling in the gaps now with things we don't already have. I don't know if it's me that you need. Bit of low cut and a high boost. You miss me here now, I won't pick up your call. It's been falling, I've been stalling for weeks. The stars are pretty when the sky falls. I don't know. And I do know there's one other thing here that's like an impact sample, so we might pop in like a nice impact just to get something in there. Let's make sure we filter by house. I like that one. Yeah, let's just keep it simple and go with this first one. I was thinking it might be a little too dark, but we'll see once it's downloaded, and then we'll just pop that in and arrange it. Copy this to our clipboard. I think here we had it coming in. I don't know if it's me that you need. I don't know if it's me that you need. You miss me here now, I won't pick up your call. It's been falling, I've been stalling for weeks. The stars are pretty when the sky falls. And I might just put a few kicks before there or something. Pretty when the sky falls. Maybe layer that up with the hat just to cut through a bit more. Nah. That's not quite what we want. But yeah, now we're adding in new elements. Great. There's no problem with that there. It sounds actually quite good. And in this case of the track, we really don't have a lot of new elements we really need to add in, which is cool. So that's just an example of how to do that. Add in new elements in sections that determine they need new elements. In other genres of electronic music, this may be more drastic. For example, you may have intros that have entirely different chord progressions, entirely different sounds. In this house track, it's very simple because a lot of it is a bit more repetitive and simple. So this is going to be very context specific. Now, the last step of this process, step 5, is just to add in final effects, automations, and variations across your arrangement. This is what I like to call chiseling away at the stone. You've just arranged your full track now, and it's got variations on a macro level, but on a micro level, it doesn't, right? So for example, every little bit of variation we had within that loop will just repeat throughout the whole track. An example of this is our kick drum. We have the last 3 beats muted on every single 8-bar loop. So I want to add a bit of variation there whereby it's not always doing that exact same repetitive thing. And I can sort of begin to make my arrangement more nuanced and interesting, right? So for example, in the intro here, I wanted a bit of a low pass going on, so I'm going to put that here. Right. Oh. I'm going to start to build up this energy. And what I could, for example, do is with my main sample here, I could automate some reverb. For example, I don't have any to begin with. I could also automate a high pass to sort of bring it in a more interesting way. Maybe not that high. Maybe not that high either. Right, just a bit more interest, right? Yeah. Maybe I'll add a little horn in there just for fun. Yeah. Maybe just add this little chop in here for fun. Again, maybe I'll use a bit of reverb on that one just for fun. I'm actually going to take this top out here and only have it come in here because you can't really hear it anyway when the drums are coming in on that filter. Here, I'm actually going to pull the kick out completely for 2 measures, 2 bars. I want the kick to continue through there. Maybe I want these in here just for a little bit of variation. Yeah, I'm quite liking that effect there. I like that there. I might continue to kick through there. End here because it's high passed anyway. continue it there, but get rid of it there as it heads into the kick bass out section. Love keeping it simple like that. Might cut these in here as well. Bring these in here just because it pre-teases that guitar coming in there. Cut these alternate samples here to really emphasize this sample guitar coming in, then bring it back in the next section. Keep the kick flowing. I love this top loop coming in here. Maybe I'm going to reduce the frequency of that chord stab down there to flesh it out a bit more. Or strip it back, should I say. More simplified stab there. Keep the kick going through because it's high pass anyway. I'm going to add a fade out on the drums here. I think that'll be good. I don't know if it's me that you need. You miss me here now, I won't pick up the call. It's been falling, I've been stalling for weeks. The stars are pretty when the sky falls. I don't know if it's me that you need. You miss me here now, I won't pick up your call. Fade it out quicker there. It's been falling, I've been stalling for weeks. The stars are pretty when the sky falls. I don't know if it's me that you need. I'm going to do some high pass automation here again on the sample chops. I don't know if it's me that you need. You miss me here now, I won't pick up. Put a kick there. You miss me here now, I won't pick up the call. It's been falling, I've been stalling for weeks. The stars are pretty when the sky falls. I think I want to tease the ride a bit in here as well, just as it sort of gets a bit of energy going. Maybe from here. Maybe here, actually. Pretty when the sky falls. Bring those in there. Keep those kicks going in there. We'll reactivate the low pass rather on this. I bring the vocal in here. I don't know if it's me that you need. It's been falling, I've been sorry for weeks. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that, to be honest. That's all the variation and track and stuff we need. Honestly, this feels like a full arrangement. Now that all is left to do is to mix and master it, to be honest. So that is how you go from loop to full track in 5 steps. Again, this probably can take you like 20, 30 minutes to do fully, really, really quick in comparison to spending hours and hours and hours getting the arrangement done. If you have any questions about this process, do leave a comment. Otherwise, please do grab the Loop Trap cheat sheet below, because that's going to go even more in depth with other cool arrangement techniques you can use to add creative variation. For example, replacing instruments, creating tension that way. Some of the underlying stuff of what I've done down here with my music bus as well. So go grab that. Do all the normal stuff, like subscribe if you want to see more tutorials like this one. And until next time, guys, happy producing. Cheers.